everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Galactic Lounge. I'm not going to say live because we are kind of live right now. It's better to kind of do a video when you're alive than to do a video when you're dead, because when you do a video when you're dead, it's not very entertaining unless you like watching dead people or you like horror movies, and then it might be your kind of thing. But I'm kind of beating around the bush. But I just decided it's better for us to record these on Zoom than the other system I was using because I was having to do way too much editing. So we're going to say it's the Galactic Lounge, and welcome to another episode of that. So I am here today with Jaime Black, who's an LA-based musician, ritualist, tarot reader, and martial artist who writes vocally driven ethereal music about love and spirituality. And we're going to talk about all sorts of things, but one of the things we're going to talk about today is sound. So Jaime, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I would love to. First of all, thank you for having me here on your show.
My pleasure.
Totally be honored to be on this side of the interview situation. So I live in Los Angeles, and I've been a musician for most of my life. And I have a business called Silverlake Priestess, and my podcast is called Silverlake Priestess. And we talk about, so we do spiritual work and spiritual exercises, and we do ritual together, and we sit in circle together. And I have brought my music into this experience, and that has brought a very powerful healing aspect to the experience. And so I love to perform, I love to sing, I love to play music with others, I like to sing in groups of people with harmony, and I love the experience of being in spiritual connection with music. I love to do yoga to music. I love to practice meditation to music. I love to listen to the drum. I love to listen to the sound bowl. And like I was saying, I love to intonate and sing in harmony with others. And there's just powerful movement and transformation and activation that happens with the combination of sound. And so anyway, I'm excited to be here and talk to you about all of this. I'm excited about your work too, so I think it's kind of really cool for us to bring, what we do together in this conversation, and yeah.
Excellent. I was going to ask you, what is your philosophy about why sound has such a deep impact on people?
Well, I think that it's because, we're like what? We're like 80 to 90% water, someplace between 70 and 90% water. And if you have a glass of water around and you create some sort of sound like this, you can actually see the movement in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
And I talk about this too in relation to the moon. So, I grew up surfers in my family. They're always checking the tides, and the moon affects the water and it affects the tides. So, when the moon is full, the tides are very different, right? I think that they're
exactly.
more intense, they're rougher, and it's because of the way that the moon is pulling on the water. Well,
gravitational pull. Yep.
On the water in our bodies. And so we tend to have this experience of when the moon is full to be too emotional or over emotional. I was a waitress for a long time in Los Angeles, where you're dealing with like hundreds of people in an evening, and you're really getting to experience people in their states, like in their emotional states, in their reactive states. People tend to be very reactive at a full moon. And okay, so bringing that back to sound, it's like we are moved by music, and we're moved by sound, and it's beyond our choice, right? So whether it's a sound that we like to listen to or not, it really affects us. And this is why music can make you cry, music can make you angry, music can cause anxiety, and we all vibrate at a different frequency. And that's a sound frequency. The earth is vibrating at a frequency. For many people probably listening to your show know about the things that we're going to talk about. But for those who don't know, if you've heard of Om and you've heard of people oming, they're recreating the vibration that the earth is making that vibration. They actually can measure the sound frequency that the earth is making all the time. And you can tap into that vibration and you can practice it. But the earth has a vibration. That's why we have color, right? Because there's different vibrations. So all of us individually have a vibration. I mean, this cup has a vibration. And so because of that vibration, that has to do with also how we get along and how we connect, or how we might each individually repel each other. And then music is going to have the same effect. There's things that like you're drawn to and you like, and then there's things you might be repelled from and that you don't like. And there's things that are completely in harmony with you right now that maybe are not in harmony with you at a different time, because what you're experiencing emotionally also is having an effect on how you're vibrating, how your own frequency is vibrating at the time.
There's something really profound you said there. Well, you said a lot of very profound things, but especially when you started talking about the moon. And there's a conversation I like having with people a lot about, because in astrology, or at least in terms of Vedic astrology, the moon relates to the consciousness of the mind. It's like the subjective experience, that we're all going through. And within Vedic philosophy, there is a particular deity from the earlier Vedic philosophy called Varuna. And Varuna over time became attributed to several different things, right? So at first, Varuna was connected to the skies. And Varuna was also connected to water. And Varuna was also connected to cosmic justice, so to speak, or universal justice. And the interesting thing is there's a way in which all of those are connected. And this might be a little bit long-winded. I'm going to warn you ahead of time, but it's just like it very much fits in with what you're saying, which is there's a sutra within the Rig Veda, which basically goes like this, which is Varuna placed the stars in the sky, which means Varuna is responsible for a lot of things that are astrological. In Vedic astrology, we work with like star clusters, which are like nakshatras, is what we call them. But Varuna placed the stars in the sky and split heaven and earth asunder. So he created the astrology and the astronomy, but he also created duality. So there's the concept of creating the thing that can rectify the split, but the split's also been created. So if you follow that same concept, the sun in astrology is the soul. And the moon is the consciousness. So the consciousness is meant to reflect the light of the soul. But it waxes and wanes in its capacity to do that. It's kind of up and down with that particular process. Sometimes it does it well. Sometimes it's like a little bit disjointed from that particular experience. There is another deity, as I'm sure everybody's heard about, called Krishna. Krishna is an aspect of Vishnu, who's the deity that permeates all of creation. And there's a saying that goes, amongst water creatures, Krishna is saying, amongst water creatures, I am Varuna. So he's identifying himself with Varuna, but the planets themselves are identified with deities, and the moon's connected to Krishna. So the moon is simultaneously Varuna and also the aspect of God that permeates all things. And this is kind of long-winded. I apologize in advance. Varuna is also an aditya, which are 12 different versions of the sun turned into a deity. So Varuna is simultaneously the soul and the consciousness, right? And so with the nakshatras of Vedic astrology, the moon, which is Varuna, visits a different star cluster every night and creates ripples in our consciousness that cause us to feel a certain way. And if you look at the tides rise and fall, that's like the flowing in and out of the mind, the buildup of stuff and the release of stuff, all of those processes. And there's a really wonderful sutra in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that ties into this in a roundabout way, which says that yoga is about stopping the modulations of the mind so that you're in that silence. But we're so used to the noise that in order to get away from the noise, we need some sort of, and this is my theory, we need some sort of sound or things or vibrating. That's why mantra works so well and things along those lines. And you really tuned into it really wonderfully there in what you were expressing about, about the moon and the waxing and the waning and how we're all impacted by it. And we're impacted by vibration. But if that same sea, which has the ocean waves, which rise and fall because of the gravitational pull of the moon, which is, Varuna, created duality, upon the tides, which are like the modulations of our mind. So because of the way our consciousness pulls on our physical incarnation, we have all these experiences of things. So we need that. We need things to get us out of the noise, so to speak.
Yes, we do need out of the noise. So many things to think about while you were talking about.
There was probably more I could have added to that to make it make a little more sense, but it's a really profound concept because you're having this concept of a deity which created consciousness and is simultaneously the sun, which is the soul, and the moon, which is our consciousness. And so we tend to look at the ocean, we see this vastness, and that's kind of like one of the closest concepts we can get to God or goddess or whatever it is that you want to call it. It's this vastness. But our experience of that vastness is like affected by the gravitational pull of our own psyche and our own consciousness, our subjective experience that we're going through, because we're not always at that space where we can just go, okay, I can see through that veil to something a little more clear, but I'm not quite there yet. And in terms of working with astrology and the way I do, that's one of the ways I like to deal with those nakshatras or those lunar mansions, is a way of kind of tuning in to going, this is trying to get you to pay attention to this or to listen to that. And sound does the same thing. It shows you the way back home, really.
Oh, I'm getting this, visual when you're talking about the waves, and it's like sound. It's almost like sound can create this container, like it can create this, the waves are going and the mind is going and all of that, and it's almost like it kind of it creates like this pocket, and stills time, and it pushes everything. It's not really pushing anything out, but it just really gives you this place to be inside of its own vibration, especially if you're experiencing sound in a way where it's loud, right? So that it can take over. And if you're listening to it like in a sound bath, or you're experiencing a sound bowl or a gong or something like that, it obviously can happen with all sorts of instruments. Actually, I offer my sound baths with not typical sound bath instruments. We actually use guitar and cello and violin and drums and voice.
Cello would be pretty phenomenal like that.
Oh yeah, it is amazing. But yeah, it's like the sound will create the space, and it also brings you into the specific vibration of it, right? So something that I was reading, I think at some point, that I thought was so interesting is that so we each have a voice. Yeah. We each have an instrument that creates a voice, and it's very interesting in this culture here. I mean, I live in the US. People, we don't sing, right? We don't sing, we don't dance. It's very the only people who sing are the people who have the voice for singing or who have a good voice. It's not part of our culture where we just anyone who does it, maybe they do it in silence or in private, in their car, in the shower or whatever, but it's not this. We're not used to using this as an instrument, as a tool, as part of And the thing about our own voice is that the sounds that it makes are actually what they fit our body.
Yeah.
We make
Yeah.
healing sounds very specifically for our own body. And so it's interesting to think about those who write songs. I channel my music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't sit down and intentionally craft it. You can learn skills to like add to this experience, and all songwriters and musicians
Different in their processes. Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But just because of the way that it just happens through me, it's they come through, and they're healing for my own experience. And I did start with writing lots of love songs. Like that's the where I was in my life. That was what was coming through me. That was actually the way that I needed to be healed. They were sad. It was love that wasn't working the way that I wanted it to. And so these songs came out in this way that were very beautiful, and I was definitely very sad in the process. You could hear it in the lyrics, but then there was also like hope, at the end of them. And so there was this whole experience of it coming through me to heal my own body.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it comes out, and then it's to heal someone else, and it's healing someone else at that same vibrational level. Like I struggled, I didn't want all of my music to be about love and that wasn't what I wanted, but I really wanted the songs to come out. And so I really just honored them, and I would play them and allow that experience to happen. And sometimes as, artists and creatives, musicians, we're judging, the art that's coming out of us. And without realizing, at that time that we're judging what's coming out of us, that it's for our own healing initially, but then it comes out and it's meant to be healing for others. So we were just kind of part of the experience of how it was created, what it needed to be about, was referring to us personally, but ultimately it's, to come out. And love and matters of the heart and all of that are things that we need healing around. We need healing around all of it, but this is an important subject matter. And I realized that when I was younger, that was all the music that I was drawn to. I wanted to listen to songs about love and heartbreak. I liked really sad music, and there was I needed healing in that area. So anyway, I write other music nowadays. I have lots of music that doesn't have lyrics. I've done a lot of asana in my life, and I did my yoga teacher training, and I learned how to teach classes and kind of navigate the class and do my peak pose and all of that, and how to, very physically be warming up the body and increase the energy. And so what was really cool about that is what I ended up doing with that, instead of teaching yoga a lot myself, I ended up playing music for yoga classes, and I knew how to create the music in alignment with what the teacher was doing with the class and how to build the energy. And all that being said, I didn't want to sing about sad love songs in a yoga class. Even it wouldn't work for the for building up the energy, and then it wouldn't work for the cool down, because it just was not a place for sad. It just wasn't a place for sad songs. So I started writing music with no lyrics, and there wasn't an intention of it being sad either. So it was this sound, that came out was just kind of what wanted to come out for being in the experience of a yoga class. And now there's music that I use for ritual. There's music that I use intentionally for deep contemplation. And then there's maybe we're doing a release ceremony and we're lighting things on fire that we want to let go of. So again, no, we're not doing sad songs there, right? We're singing, about other things, and using sounds that are, feel like fire and feel like release and all of that. And so we can use different sounds to activate things within ourselves and within each other, and then also to release. We know these sound bowls, right? There's crystal ones. I have a set of Tibetan sound bowls, and they have, they can be linked with the chakras. There's sounds that are linked with our different chakras. And so you might be there's actually pitches, and I'm not going to say them because I can get them all wrong right now. But if you want to do crown chakra activation, you're not going to use a really deep, low like a more root chakra kind of vibration.
No, it's going to be different. Yeah, it's vibrating at a different frequency. It's interesting because in India there's an entire like raga system built up around different types of emotions. And interestingly enough, I came to learn not too long ago that there are ragas that are connected to the different lunar mansions or different nakshatras that are meant to kind of emote that type of energy. But it's interesting because when you were talking, I was, dependent upon, like what you kind of believe in, so to speak. What anybody believes in is what I mean to say, not you personally. If you look at scientific theory, you have the whole concept of the universe being created with the, Big Bang. That's a vibration, right? Every spiritual text that you read, every creation story, it's almost every single one of them has a vibration thing involved in it. The very first of the lunar mansions is called Ashwini Nakshatra, and it's the divine twins. And these two twins, they drive a chariot that pulls the sun across the sky. So the sun is the soul. So those two charioteers are the dualistic nature of our existence, pulling our soul across the, human condition, so to speak. And so I got to thinking about all the things that you were saying about healing of the emotions and working through that. I've always had this, like, if you try to figure out why we exist, right? Sometimes I go, did maybe whatever it is that we think of as the ultimate, did it maybe want to have an experience of itself? And so it splintered off from itself so that it could have an experience of itself. And it wants to give us that experience of ourselves as, pure and perfect, right? And so the whole thing of music and sound that we work with, we're like this creator that's putting out this energy that simultaneously heals the split within us and takes us back to that source, which is indeed the vibration that kind of created creation in the first place. Mm.
Beautiful. I love to hear I love to hear different ideas of the story of.
None of us knows really, none of us, except those rare moments where those little lights go on in our head. Ding! I always point to this little star over my head because it always looks like I've got a light going off in my head or something. Until we have those little moments where everything is just kind of cleared for us for like a split second, and then boom, it's gone again.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we can have those moments.
Yeah.
With sound.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. I was talking to Jamie before we got started about the concept of Nad Yoga, which is there's many different ways to work with Nad Yoga. Nad is like the sound that, much like Om, it's the sound that underlies all of creation. And some of the Nad Yoga practices will focus around, either music, like quite often with devotional music, or with sound or with chanting. And the idea is working with sound to the extent that when you stop the sound from your physical body, stop, vibrating the sound, your nervous system keeps making the sound. And when you stop, it's like that moment when you're singing or when you're playing music and the music stops, it doesn't really stop. It's kind of still there. You can feel the vibration. And that's why I think, on a certain level, because I used to play music too, why you can get so addicted to music, because it always gives you this space of feeling completely in another realm while you're singing it, while you're playing it, and when you've stopped as well, really. And so it's a really powerful thing.
And when I'm not doing it enough, I can actually feel, I feel the need to do it. I feel the lack of doing it. I mean, I live in a place where I can't make a lot of noise here in this place, and so I actually.
That must be challenging.
It is, and also it causes me to create events I need to create these events where I can sing
So you
and
can do it.
create sound on this bigger level. And who knows, maybe if I was able to make that much sound in my space all the time, I wouldn't feel compelled to go out and create it outside. So, all things just kind of like work together in that way. And there's really something about, being able to play in a space that is designed for sound, so that there's amplification and there's space and there's the speakers all over, really creating this whole experience. Because there are so many different ways to experience sound. I mean, it's beautiful to be at a park and be laying outside on the grass on a yoga mat. Someone's going around with a sound bowl, and that's kind of mixed with just the listening of whatever is outside and the trees and the grass and birds and all of that. And then being in a giant space that is totally amplified, that has speakers surround.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you close your eyes and you're laying on your yoga mat and you're, or you're standing, just people go to concerts for this, right? People go to listen to music. You go to there's different, all sorts of metal, but you go to like a metal show, like this puts you in a realm. Like this is a very specific vibe. There's very specific energy that's happening inside of this, and people are not laying down by any means. You know what I mean?
No, it's a different thing.
Physical,
I was hoping you'd actually go there because here's the thing is, while you were talking about all of this, I don't know if I can talk about this because of copyright-based things, but there's a song by Pete Townsend that touches on the whole concept of sound. It's like about a note, right? Once there was I better not say it because then I'm doing the song and then I'll be prone to copyright things. But
I think as long as you're not actually playing his song without his permission, you're allowed to have a conversation.
All right, well, this is a song by The Who, so if this is some copyright thing, I have quoted the artist's name, but there's a line in it, and I don't know all the full lines of the song, but there's one about there being a note pure and simple, and another line about the same note that creates can also destroy. Really, things that we consider dissonant, or, some people would consider metal music to be loud. I actually like metal music. I like punk rock, I like hardcore, I like jazz, I like classical, then I'm pretty, open to anything. But things that we would consider dissonant or, not a soothing sound, they have their own harmony. It's just a different harmony. Everything is a harmony, just as everything is an order. Chaos is a form of order. It's a form of order that's without order. So on a certain level, it goes back to proving the theory that everything is just kind of interconnected because you can't help but have harmony, really. It's just there's some harmonies that are a little more dissonant and louder and in your face, and there are some harmonies that are a little more laid back. And life gives us so many different flavors and colors and so many different things that,
Well, what you're saying about the harmony makes me think about the planets. When you're looking in the chart and you're seeing the different relationships between the planets, it's the same with those notes. Like some are like very harmonious and cause like this sense of like peace and resolve, and then there's other ones that there's a grind, there's a dissonance in there. It's actually designed to like break things up and or to be confronting. Yeah.
And when you get down to the root of it, just like, when we have like, if we're a musician or if we sing or whatever it is that we do, and we feel like an angry song coming out of us, and we create that angry song and we let it move and we let it grow. I mean, that's equally as spiritual as those difficult experiences we go through. In my work, when I get more into the predictive side of things, I generally will quite often have people who will ask me about a placement in their chart, and they'll go, "Is it good or is it bad?" And I always I'm just gonna say this, and those of you who kind of come to me and you ask this question, maybe you can just stop it for a bit, which is, whenever I hear that question of is it good or is it bad, I'm just going, well, really it's what's right and it's what's there. And it's there for you to grow from. And you may not want the experience, you may want a different experience, but that dissonant note that's like in your face and maybe loud, and you're going, oh God, I just want to go somewhere else where it's quiet. And it can have a power on you too, and it can move some things for you. Just like that soft, quiet music can make you feel a certain way, but may make you feel a little too laid back when you need to go get the job done, right? And it's the same with those experiences that we have in our life that, some of them we'd like for life to be easy all the time. I wouldn't. Screw that.
Yeah.
I want a challenge every once in a while.
We get bored anyway. We get bored
if
it's easy and the same all the time.
You would, exactly. And so you need those things. Every single experience that happens to us in life is our prosperity. You just got to kind of recognize it. And you can ask me that when the shit's hitting the fan in my own life. And I'll probably deny it and go, shut up and everything like that. But then I'll come back and say, yeah, it's true. It's a prosperity moment, every single moment that you have. You can't help but prosper. And interestingly enough, I have to share this with you. Let's see if I can memorize it off the top of my head. There's a particular nakshatra, right? It's called Denishta Nakshatra. And Denishta is symbolized by a drum, okay? Sometimes by a flute. So the interesting thing is it's always symbolized by a drum or a flute and never with somebody playing the drum or the flute. Because it's just an instrument. And we're just instruments, really, on a certain level. We connect the music to the source of the music, or the source of the music to the music. And it's interesting because most people who are musicians will have a planet in Denishta Nakshatra somewhere. But one of the teachings of that nakshatra is about support, the support that we want. It's about the support of deities within creation, which are called the Vasuna, or the Vasus. They're also called the gods of light and abundance. But they're there to support our daily existence. And how the strongest connection to that is going back to the source, which it says from the past. But what it means when it says from the past is it means from our past. Sometimes it actually creates, when there's a planet in it, it will actually bring up things from the past, but it's more about the source, where you came from. And in this existence, the thriving that comes from connecting to that source. So it's interesting because you and I are connecting, and I did not plan this, when Saturn, Venus, and Mars are all conjuncting each other in Denishta Nakshatra. So there's something there about connecting and connecting to the source and moving it through. And as you were saying, you tend to channel a lot of your music. And interestingly enough, Denishta energy is a channel. Like people who have planets there, they also tend to channel things quite a lot.
I'd be interested to see what planets I have there.
Exactly. Sorry, I went off on a tangent, but it was a really, sorry, I'm saying sorry to everybody, but I'm not saying sorry because I'm not really sorry. I'm just going to do it anyway.
That's what we're here for.
Exactly. But, I think that musicians, I think poets, I think anybody who's connected to any type of art form, we're connecting to a source, and we're sharing that source with people. And that's why you'll see people who are musicians, people who are artists, people who work with the spiritual arts. You'll find that there's always some profound challenge in the lives of those people. Because you have to go through the experience of clearing out in order to share that with other people, really. What would the musician have to write songs about if they've never been through an experience. It's like the old line in the song. It's like if you got to pay your dues if you want to sing the blues.
It's true, though. I mean, we're all here to have experiences,
Yeah.
And to share them with each other.
Yeah.
That's why you and I are not having the same experience. We have different experience, and we have a different perspective, and we have our own voice that has a vibration. So this is why we connect to you and I might. We just as an example, we could have the exact same message for people, but somebody's gonna hear it in your voice, not hear it in my voice, and vice versa, because we are. It is a frequency thing. It is a sound thing. There is sound. It carries information, and all sorts of different information, and we recognize there's something within our body that picks up on that's for me, or that's medicine for me, or there's information in there for me, and it's happening on like an unconscious, very unconscious level. I mean, we can become conscious of what we're attracted to and that we like it, but the initial response is happening before we're aware of all of that.
So I'm going to ask you another question, which is based on the things that you do, so to speak. So things that we're attracted to. What attracted you to martial arts?
My brother started before I did. So I was young and I was doing dance and gymnastics, and that was just how I was moving my body. And my brother started going to martial arts, and I was just watching it, and I wanted to. It was just, I stopped everything else I was doing, and I started to practice that. And all the things I know about myself now, Mars is so prominent in my chart. I'm very, I don't know all of my astrology actually in the astrology that you do. So I don't know how to say, exactly what it is that I am, but like.
Well, where is your Mars normally?
In Scorpio.
Then your Mars is in Scorpio using my system, because I do Vedic astrology, but I use the tropical zodiac with sidereal nakshatras. So your planetary placements would be in the same signs. Yeah. So Mars in Scorpio would be a natural thing that's there.
And it's conjunct my sun. So I'm very. How close?
Yeah.
Maybe 4 degrees.
Pretty
close.
And was there a point in your life, sorry, I'm asking you all these questions, but it's like, so was there a point in your life where you had to get in touch with your anger or your rage?
I think I was born with it, but yes, I've had different experiences with my anger and my rage. And, I think I've always had a different versions, of expression. And I was very fiery and very reactive and very expressive with all of it when I was young. That was my truth. That was my honesty. And then I had an experience for a bunch of years where I kind of put it in shadow, and I was like shamed myself for, my expression of it, my feeling of it.
Yeah.
And so then stuffed that for a long time, and then came back into like a healthy expression of it. And it was my Chiron is in Aries. And so there's that. And then when I started having my Chiron return some few years ago, and I had done martial arts for a long period of time when I was young. I moved to Los Angeles. I was practicing, some kickboxing place, and then that place kind of stopped existing. And so then I found yoga because I was really looking, for something. But then I didn't practice martial arts on the regular for a good 10 or 15 years. And then right when my Chiron was returning, I found a dojo and started practicing again. And that has just, that's a whole other thing to talk about practicing things that you practiced as you were growing up and forming in who you are. That was just amazing return to all sorts of parts of me that maybe I hadn't
you'd forgotten about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's something that is medicine, that I use now. I have my yoga practice, my asana practice, my meditation practice that I fall off of sometimes. But, I have that, and then I have my martial arts practice, and they do completely different things, and they move my energy in totally different ways. But for me, having so much fire, I need to move that. I need to move that energy in a healthy way. And it helps me with confidence. It helps me with energy being stagnant. It helps me with judgment and maybe like having too many opinions or judgments of things. And then it helps me to just move that energy through my body, and actually makes me more free, and it makes me feel more empowered.
One of the things that can be common about those Sun-Mars connections like that, because here, let's give you, this is the sun, but it's not really. No, here, we'll make this the sun, okay? So here's the sun, right?
Okay.
And here's the earth, okay? So when a planet is combust, meaning joining the sun, unless it's retrograde, what's happening is that planet is behind the sun, and it's trying to say to the earth, hey, look at me, but the earth can't see it. And so what it creates inside the individual is this disconnect from that planet. Now, when the sun's doing that with Mars, one of the things it does is our dignity or our nobility goes, if I let that Mars out, my dignity will be impacted, or my nobility will be impacted, or the way I need to be seen to be will be impacted. So we tend to keep it like under lock and key. But at a certain point in our life, usually it happens to people like somewhere like early 40s or something like that, it'll begin to kind of come out of hiding. And we have to then at that particular point learn how to discipline the flow of it, because we've been keeping it repressed for so long that it's going, I'm ready, and here I am, and I'm ready to come out. And so getting into martial arts at a time like that is one of the most positive things people can do, or any type of movement, something that's going to really work that Mars and let it be like, physical, and move that energy in a positive way.
Yeah.
So that it understands actually owning my anger and owning my frustrations and owning my actions is a very noble thing. And my nobility cannot be impacted by letting that stuff out. As a matter of fact, it's impacted by keeping it bottled up. Because what ends up happening when we keep that stuff bottled up is we tend to attract to us people who sense that, but they can't see it. Right? So people will go, there's something underneath the surface with this person that's making me feel, regardless of whether we like it or not, that's making me feel a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit uneasy or a little bit irritable. And so since I'm irritable, I'm going to lash out at them. And that person lashes out at the person with Sun Mars. So the Sun Mars person goes, I've got to let that Mars out. And so there's a karmic lesson that's being learned. The Sun Mars person's letting the Mars energy out. And the other person's having an experience with that person because they needed to learn something about Mars too.
Yeah, that's it's going to explode. I mean, Mars.
Exactly.
And when I talk about Mars with people too, I'm like, it's the god of war. It's this planet that like. It's ruling all of our fiery nature and our impulse and our sexuality and our anger and our energy and all of that. What was I gonna say? But it's positive. It's it's positive motion forward. So your tea kettle, right? You're turning that on. You wanting it to like boil and get hot, But that's what is gonna, it's gonna make your coffee and your tea or whatever. But it's going to like. That's what's going to make it whistle, is that, it needs to, that energy needs to raise for it to come out, for the steam to come out. And so we're not taught how to deal with anger in a healthy way. Like martial arts is a great thing for kids that
Exactly.
have tons of energy, and maybe kids that get in fights a lot and have all of this. It's because that energy is suppressed and they have it, and it's
Yeah.
just you're in trouble. You're going to, you're given timeout. All of this because the kid is having all of this anger and like not being shown how to use it. But so and people I think maybe think that they don't want to, you shouldn't experience like fighting or punching or yelling and screaming or something like that, because you're just going to like intensify it. But actually, if you can just learn how to move it and to honor it and use it for what it is positive for it, people don't speak their truth in their relationships or wherever it is. They're not speaking their truth, and then eventually explodes out. That's a positive thing that information is coming out. If we could just learn how to work with it, healthy boundaries are another aspect of healthy anger. Having a healthy no, being able to speak your truth instead of like it being suppressed, because that anger always will eventually come out. It's going to come out in one of two ways. It's either going to come out and it's going to come out onto someone else, or it's going to be suppressed in, and this is where we get different health issues and things like that, because this energy, it's all this anger, fire energy, and
exactly
body who's absorbing it, and
you really literally break out in boils, especially if you have a weak Mercury. You'll break out in boils on your skin when you keep all that Mars energy like pent up like that, because it becomes toxic to your system. Yeah. And so then it needs to kind of get out of your system a little bit, in any way it can. I was just going to say, one of the signs of like a really healthy Mars, this is a really difficult concept for people. And I like that you mentioned like how people like don't like to think about their anger and stuff like that. And people always give Mars a bad reputation for one thing or another, but Mars is impulse and intuition mixed together. And this is what martial arts teaches you. Martial arts teaches you how to, in the moment, like, if you're in battle and struggle with someone, how to know what to do without getting into the anger to the extent that the anger is controlling you. You're just letting that Mars energy flow. You naturally know, somebody is coming at you, you naturally know, arm goes up. You just do it. You don't think about it because it's your nature. It's that which is flowing through you. And so Mars is very intuitive, and a lot of people don't give it a good reputation for being very intuitive. It's just intuitive action that knows what to do at the right moment. In Vedic astrology, Mars is the general. He's like the one who knows like the strategy. And he's often removed from the battlefield, so he's able to kind of, see the battlefield and understand it, because he has to. He has to be able to act, so to speak. So that's why I wanted to ask you about martial arts, because martial arts is a very spiritual thing that I think a lot of times people don't understand how incredibly powerful and how incredibly spiritual it is. And it's not just about, learning it so you can learn how to, deal with fights. It's about learning how to deal with, energy, and how to work with that and put it to, a good constructive use, and have it disciplined so that like when and when not to use it, really.
I think that it was key in me listening to my intuition, because you're listening, you're learning how to work with your own energy. I mean, you're learning how to break through sometimes when you do exercises, when you're breaking bricks or you're breaking wood. Like, you have to move through, not stop at that place. Move through. And you're maybe doing exercises in air, and you're just working with your own energy. How hard can you hit? The control that you have to be able to also send your energy through something, but be able to stop, so you're not hitting or hurting someone you're working with. It's incredibly powerful way of doing magic with your body. And you have to believe in it.
Yeah.
or it doesn't work right either.
It's all too, if you watch martial arts, it's all from right here. Like you watch Bruce Lee movies when he kicks, yeah, he's not kicking from his legs, he's not punching from his arm, it's flowing from right there at the navel, and that's where the power is. And it's the seat of our power, and it's the center of gravity for each of us, and it's just flowing from that space where you're centered. Really. Thank you for being on today. Do you want to tell people how they can get in touch with you and about some of the other things that you do that we didn't discuss? Because we
going to the end of time. Yes. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been so fun to have this conversation with you. For anyone that wants to find me, you can find me at jaimeblack.com, and my name is spelled Jaime. You can find my music on Spotify. You can find everything about all the things that I offer, the sound baths, the rituals, the tarot readings, on my website. It's all right there. And if you go to jaimeblack.com/song, and this can also be found on my website, you can get a free download of one of my songs that you can use. It's a 7-minute song. It's amazing to put on repeat. You can use it for your meditation. You can use it for spiritual practice. You can use it just for chilling out. And that's my gift to you, just jaimeblack.com/song.
I'll put the details down below too, so people can just,
click on it. Okay, yeah, great. Thank you so much. I'm on Instagram too. I'm on Instagram at Jaime Black Music. You can also find me as Silverlake Priestess, but if you start at Jaime Black Music, it'll kind of take you, everything over there. It was so awesome to be here with you, Michael, and to have this conversation.
It's good to have you on. Yeah. And
thank you so much.
You're welcome to come on again.
On my show.
Okay. Bye now and take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.